Hello everyone, it is Sukasa, and welcome to Cube World, the new voxel-based, infinitely open-world sandbox RPG that just went into open public alpha a couple of weeks ago. As such, this and all of these videos are being made with the early alpha version of the game, and things are subject to change, so if there's any discrepancies between the build version you might be playing in the future and this one, that would be why. This series is going to be my tips and tricks tutorial, just the facts edition, where I do smaller bite-sized episodes focused on specific topics of the game, which, depending on the topic being covered, might range from a 2 to 5 minute video upwards of, especially these first couple of episodes, upwards of maybe 15 minutes. I'm going to try to keep them short, concise, and to the point, though, giving you guys just the facts you need to be successful in this awesome game. This first episode is going to be covering the controls, UI, maybe the inventory system, and the map, and give you guys a little bit of direction on where to go and what to do, because it is a sandbox game, a little bit like how Minecraft does it, or once you create your map, it just plops you out like a babe in the woods, in this situation literally in the woods, out in the middle of nowhere, and doesn't tell you where to go, what to do, or how to go about doing it. But don't be discouraged and fret not, I'm here to help and give you guys some tips and tricks I have found out along the way. So, first off, you need to know the controls. They're simple, standard FPS controls. Move your mouse for free looking at the camera, WSAD to move forward, back, left, and right. For the more advanced control binds, hit F1, and the colored little neat mini diagram of a keyboard pops up showing you all the different hotkeys and what they do. It should be noted that in this current build of the game, I have found no way in-game of changing any of these binds, so they're set. That's what they are. Yeah, and love it or hate it. Maybe in the future, custom keybinds will be added, but at the moment, that's what they are. Hit F1 again to pull that up, and F1 a second time to make it go away. Unlike most games, if you have a window open and you hit escape, it will not make that window go away. A little bit of annoying if you got your character sheet and your inventory and your crafting window all open at the same time. In most games I would just hit escape a couple times and make all those go away, but instead you have to hit the individual hotkeys that you use to pull up those windows. You have to hit those hotkeys a second time to make it go away. Again, maybe that'll change in a future build. Alright, so real quick, some of the UI elements that you're looking at here. Briefly, it's just your standard RPG. This red bar down here at the middle bottom, it's a red bar. You've got your hit points, numerical value of your hit points. The bar next to that is your MP, your mana points. Due to the rogue class that I am, for mechanics I'll explain in a moment, I've got 0 out of 100 MP, but if I had a full bar, it would be a blue bar. So blue bar for mana, red bar for health, pretty standard. The bar below this is your standard hotbar. The two skills you start with, your basic attack, your special attack, which is left click and right click respectively. The 1 through 4 is not used very early on in the game, because as you level up you'll gain skill points and you can spec into specific skills for your class, and those special skills will go in this hotbar. So you won't be using that until you level up some. The final button over here with the Q next to it is your quick item slot. You do start with 5 health potions, and that's where they show up. Finally, up here in the top left, you got a cute little picture of your face, your name, level, class, a secondary hit, yeah, another hit point bar, 2 for the price of 1, and the XP bar. Again, this is a RPG, so every time you kill a monster, you gain a little bit of XP, depending on how difficult that monster was compared to you. It could be anywhere from 1 or 3 XP, upwards if it was a tougher mob, 7, 12, and 17 I've gotten. Anyway, once that gets filled up all the way, at level 1 takes 50. Once you get 50 XP, you will level up, hit level 2, and get 2 skill points to spend, and I'll do a whole episode on skills and the skill window and specializations and all that, but needless to say, that's where your XP bar is. Alright, the last little bit of controls, like almost every game out, you hit left click to attack, and because I'm a rogue, I've got dual wielding daggers here, so I'm swinging my daggers with my left click. It is a basic default attack that does a small amount of damage, but you can just keep using it over and over because it does not take any mana points to use. On the contrary, it actually generates mana points whenever you use it. The only class exception to this is the mage, which has 100 out of 100 MP to start with. and its default attack just goes off rather quickly. All three of the other classes generate their mana point by using the left-click default attack. The right-click attack for the classes consumes mana points after you've generated them. It is a significantly more powerful skill that also has some secondary effects depending on your class and what you're using. Like, for example, once I build up my mana points with my left-click attack as a rogue with daggers, once I build it up, I can then hit right-click. It will consume all the mana points I have built up, and it will do damage based on how many mana points I had to use. So it's best to fill that bar all the way up to 100, and then hit your right-click special attack. It will use all 100 mana points and do a significant amount of damage. If I only had 20 MP and then hit right-click to use the special attack, it would do damage, but not as much damage had I had a full 100. It should be noted that there are secondary effects for this. With the daggers as the rogue, just for an example, its secondary effects, it's got a small chance to knock down and stun your enemy, which is very, very helpful. It's also, with the daggers, has a small chance to turn them green, which means they're being poisoned with a damage over time. Your different classes have a whole bunch of different secondary effects. I'm not going to go into all of them right now. The one notable exception to all of this is the mage. Its left-click default attack does not generate mana points because you start with a full mana point bar. Rather, it is a quick attack that casts rather quickly. It's like a fire tornado, and the right-click special attack consumes the mana points that you already have, and it takes a significantly longer time to cast than the left-click attack. As a mage, left-click does not generate mana points, as far as I remember playing my mage. It just goes off quicker. Anyway, though, moving along, not only are there different weapons, obviously, for the different classes. A mage cannot use my daggers, for example, and my rogue cannot use a mage staff. Aside from that, though, there are a bunch of different weapons that each class has access to. So I don't have to use daggers as a rogue. There are a couple of different weapon types that the rogue can use, and neatly enough, you actually start with a few of them, so you can try them out because they all have different effects when it comes to their right-click special attack. If you just push B to pull up your inventory, you will see that in here it's actually an equipment inventory, a item equipment paper doll, and your character stat page all combined into one. The character stat page over here on the left, it shows your armor, resistance, crit chance, and all that good stuff. The equipment paper doll with the empty slots, which are not being filled by items, are down here. Stuff like your chest and feet, shoulder, hands, armor, all of that is down there. And you do start with a couple of items. Obviously, like I mentioned, you start with a weapon equipped. And you also start with some rings, a left and a right ring equipped, which have some bonus stats on them, like crit chance, and this one has tempo and crit. Anyway, in your equipment list up here, in your backpack, I guess you should say, are the other weapons that are available for your class to use. As a rogue, you have the option of either using the daggers that you come pre-equipped with, or you could use this iron longsword, which you could think of kind of like a katana, or you could use these iron fists to replace your daggers, which I guess you could call kind of like a brass knuckles. Anyway, the different types of weapons have different effects of them. For example, let's show off the longsword here. You can either just pick it up and drop it into your weapon slot, or you could just right-click the weapon and it will swap them out. If you notice, the two icons down there at the bottom for my attacks changed completely. That is because I now have different swings with them. They're different attacks. The left click is still always your default attack that generates mana points, and your right click is still always your special attack that consumes mana points. But what that right click special attack does works differently. For example, the daggers is just a quick attack that does a single hit that does, say, 15 hit points damage, whereas with this longsword it does like 3 or 4 quick attacks in succession that do like 3 or 4 hit points each. So it's a bit different. It's got a little bit different playstyle for each type of weapon. Also, the secondary effects I mentioned, where the dagger's got that poison dot that it can, has a chance to do. The sword does not have that chance. It does not poison stuff. But to make up for that, the sword has a significantly higher chance to do that knockdown stun than the dagger has. Some of the other weapon examples of that would be the mage. It starts with the mage staff equipped, but in your inventory you've got these bracelet things that are 2 items, kind of like the daggers you put into each slot. And instead of the staff's fire tornado, which is got a small cast time to it, instead if you put those bracelets on, you shoot fire bolts out of your hand, which cast instantly. They do a little bit less damage, but they cast faster. And your right-click attack is also different in that case. So all the different classes start with several different weapons that they can choose from that have different attack abilities and different effects with them. Try them out, find something that works for you and your playstyle. The other thing that should be noted in here, the tabs at the top are your different inventory tabs. The one that looks kind of like a clay pot, this is where your quick slot items go, your hit point potions. You start with 5 of them. They're exceedingly important. I'll tell you here shortly, or maybe in the next episode, how to make more of these. You're going to be going through a lot of them, but that's where they show up. And the way you can't drag it down to the quick slot there. If you can see, each spot here in the inventory has a square associated with it that you can drag it to on a grid, and whatever item is in the top left grid here, that's what item shows up in the quick bar. So later on you'll be getting some food that you can use, and I'll talk about that again in a whole nother episode. But if you have food in here and you want that food to show up in the quick bar, you just take the life potion, move it out of the way, and then pick up your food and put it in the top left, and then the food will show up on the quick bar down here, and you just hit Q to use the quick slot item. Alright, so that's it about your inventory. The last thing I want to cover briefly here is the mini-map. You got a mini-map that pretty accurately, really, it's very detailed, shows a one-to-one relation of what's going on in the game world. You also have a compass here, which changes its direction based on where your camera is facing. So my camera is facing south, the compass shows south. Camera's facing north, it shows north. Very, very useful. Use this a lot to keep from getting lost. For a larger overworld map, push the M button and it will pull up the overworld map here. Blue areas are unexplored areas. Think of it kind of like a fog of war. As you progress ever closer to it, it will start to render out the area, and the landscape like this will show up. The bright colored square here, if you notice, and the dim area around it, the bright colored square means I've been and traveled to that square. Each section of the map in the world is made of a cube, which you can clearly see on the blue area. And each time you visit one of these cubes, it will brighten up. So you can kind of tell where you've been and where you haven't been. Alright, the other things about the map, you will notice there are some different colored icons out here in the distance. Quite a few of these cross swords, and one thing here that looks kind of like houses or buildings. First off, let's talk about the cross swords. What that represents is missions, or I guess you could call them quests. I would highly recommend you just ignore that for right now as a brand new character early on at level nothing. At this point in the game, the only types of missions that are available when you go out to these spots are kill the boss monster ones. They have significant rewards to them, but they are very difficult. I would recommend get some experience, gain a level or so, get some skills, buy some armor, and outfit yourself with a bunch of potions and food and armor and all that good stuff before you head out to try to attempt one of those. They are pretty challenging to kill a boss monster. So that's what those are. And this icon here, unlike the cross-sword mission icon, this is one I would highly recommend you want to head towards. That should be your first goal, because this is the city icon. Every map has a city nearby where you spawn, and there's a bunch of stuff to be found in the city, from crafting stations that you use to craft armor and weapons from materials and resources you find in the overworld, which we'll talk about in the next episode. So that's where you find the crafting stations. Also in the towns, you find the NPC vendors. As you're making your way towards the town, undoubtedly you will find some monsters that will probably attack you, and if you kill them, they have a chance to drop loot that you can sell to the NPC vendors. Also, the monsters that you fight more than likely are going to drop some coins, some money, copper coins and whatnot, and you can buy stuff from the NPC vendors with those coins. There are a couple different types of vendors. You got a weapon vendor, the armor vendor, and a potion slash miscellaneous items vendor. The one I would highly recommend you want to head towards, and the reason why I want to head towards this city, is to visit that potion vendor guy and buy some with any and all money you got. Buy as many glass flasks as you can. The glass flasks are the secondary ingredient that you need to craft more health potions. You cannot buy the health potions directly from him, but you can only buy the materials required to craft them. So go see the vendor there for potions, buy the glass flasks. I'll tell you a bit more in the next episode about the other item required and where you can find it. So that's a brief overview. One more thing that you can find in cities that we'll cover in a later episode is the class NPC, class specialization respec guy. Once you hit level 2, from that point on, if you want to respec your class specialization, you have to go talk to the NPC in the city, and it will charge you some funds. I'll cover all of that in a future episode and talk more about the class specializations and all of that, as well as the respecing of it. But needless to say, that's where the guide required for specializations is found. There's also inns that you will find in and around on the outskirts of these towns. And an inn you can stay the night and progress time, because this time thing up here, that is not your local time on your desktop in real life. That number is what time it is in game. It progresses at the rate of 1 minute in game time equals about 6 seconds in real life, so a full 24 hours takes about 144 minutes. And once it goes on a 24-hour clock, so once this gets to about 20, which is about 8 p.m., it starts to get dark. So you don't want to be out and about trying to adventure at night, so go see an innkeeper, and he will advance the time to morning of the next day at about 7 a.m. I'll show you that in a later episode when I show off some of the areas around the city and talk about that more in depth. Anyway, though, that pretty much concludes this episode. It ran a bit longer than I had expected, but I covered a lot of info. I hope you found it insightful, and I hope you enjoyed it. If so, subscribe for more. Don't forget to thumbs up. Next episode, I'm going to cover things you need to be looking for out and about while you're adventuring and heading towards the town, some items for crafting that you can harvest and how to go about looting those, and several other things that I didn't have time to mention this time. So stay tuned for that episode, which is coming at you soon. Till next time, Sukas is signing out. I hope you all have a good one.